In 1995, Barings & Co., a 233-year-old financial institution, lost $1.3 billion. This wasn't just a bank. This was an institution that survived both world wars and countless financial crises. It was the bank to the queen. But it could not withstand Nick Leeson. Nick Leeson wasn't just a trader. He was a mastermind who didn't play the system, he owned it. And for a while, he had won spectacularly. When the ambitious Leeson arrived at Barings, he quickly transformed the bank into a money-making juggernaut. His empire seemed untouchable, until one devastating mistake changed everything. This is the shocking story of that fatal error and the destruction it unleashed upon one of the oldest and most respected British financial institutions.
Good evening. Crisis talks have been going on all day at the Bank of England to work out a deal to save Britain's oldest merchant bank. Barings is facing bankruptcy after one of its traders lost nearly £400 million on dealings in the Far East. He has now vanished.
Well, I left school at the age of 18, so I didn't go to university. I very spectacularly failed my maths A level, but somehow still ended up in the world of banking. For those of you who know the City of London, I started right in the heart of the city, 15 Lombard Street.
Wow.
So you literally walk out of Bank tube station, and that's where you were. And this was pre everything going to Canary Wharf as it is these days. So everything was just bank on top of bank. And so that was 1985. 1987, you've got the Big Bang era, which for me was when everything changed, and has a degree of relevance these days, because obviously in the US you're looking, and in the UK, everybody's looking at deregulation again. So that was the big deregulation event.
Just to explain to people who are listening to us, this Big Bang era, basically, at that time, I believe commissions were all fixed all across the board. It was kind of like a monopoly business. And then it created this whole deregulatory environment where everybody could compete on price, execution, value, anything. And it really opened up an opportunity to lots of young lads like yourself who were hungry and competitive and sort of didn't come out of the posh, Oxford private school or public school, whatever it is in London you guys call it, right, backgrounds, to really compete mano a mano in the financial markets of UK and the global markets, right? Leeson wasn't born into wealth. His father was a plasterer, his mother was a nurse. Far cry from the glittering world of high finance that he would later find himself to be in. At 18, he dropped out of school because academic success just wasn't his path. But he did possess one crucial talent. He knew how to make money. Starting with small jobs at banks, he grabbed whatever opportunity that came his way. But his big breakthrough came at Coates & Company, a prestigious London financial institution that served many wealthy clients, including the royal family. Here, positioned in London's financial heart, he absorbed everything and anything, learning every trick at Coates. And by 1987, his ambition drove him to Morgan Stanley, where keen mentors shaped his talent, and his transformation was complete. Nick Leeson was ready, though no one could have predicted just how his name would later become synonymous with one of banking's greatest financial failures.
We're looking for somebody to talk to about the Barings story. Is there anybody here who could talk to us? Nobody at all? About Mr. Leeson? Was his office in here, do you know?
Inside this building, worried officials from Barings and financial regulators are trying to figure out how one trader could rack up losses worth at least $600 million trading on the Japanese markets.
So in Japan a couple of times with Morgan Stanley, and then was headhunted to Barings. And with Barings, I worked in Hong Kong, I worked in Jakarta, worked in a couple of the European offices, setting up different parts of the business. But the real issue was down in Jakarta, where we had some some unsettled trades that we'd paid for the stock from the stock exchange, but we couldn't pass it on to the clients because it was in bad form. So it was just really that forensic, very methodical accurate sort of approach of just taking a problem and working your way through it, which is what I was very good at.
While his position at Morgan Stanley's futures and options back office was an improvement, Leeson recognized that it wouldn't lead to the coveted front office roles that he sought. Nevertheless, he spent 2 years there gaining very valuable insights into financial industry's mechanics, understanding trade operations, unwritten rules, and knowledge that would later facilitate his most controversial trading activities. By late 1980s, Leeson had developed sufficient enough expertise to advance his career. His market reputation grew as someone with exceptional profit-finding opportunities. And by 1989, Barings Bank, a prestigious 200-year-old institution that served the British royalty, recruited him. Leeson continued to excel at Barings, earning promotion after promotion to the trading floor, and his growing reputation led management to consider him for leadership role in Asian operations. By 1992, Leeson was appointed general manager of Barings' future trading operations at the Singapore International Monetary Exchange. The position carried substantial responsibility. Any misstep could jeopardize Barings' operations in Singapore, and this was a risk Leeson was determined to avoid.
A lot of the situations, I was just responding to as they happened. You're expecting that knock on the door every single minute of every single day. And, my background, a lot of the process, if you like, was from Morgan Stanley. And Morgan Stanley for me and Barings were chalk and cheese. Morgan Stanley was a very efficient, well-run organization. They had one settlement system that looked after everything, whereas at Barings it was very fragmented. It was, it was a 233-year-old merchant bank, but the part that I worked for was still in its infancy. It was only formed in 1985. It was breaking into the big tiger economies, doing a lot of business really quickly. And the infrastructure and the processes weren't really there.
To think that the management have allowed this to go on, because the guy in the papers is getting a blame for this Leeson, but who are his superiors? They must know what's going on. And as far as I'm concerned, the management should stand up and take some of the blame, and they're not.
Why didn't those people who ran Barings come to you and say, what are you doing?
Because they're stupid. They don't understand the business, and they should never have been in the position that they were in. He was supposed to be controlling the global treasury function. He was supposed to understand derivatives. He didn't. And he would pay the money every single day, would accept, pretty ridiculous explanations from me.
Years ago, I was doing an after dinner or speaking at a conference, and somebody accused me of organizational arbitrage. So, seeing the weaknesses in the system and taking advantage of them, and a helicopter view of it, that's a fairly good description. But it wasn't, even at that stage, Boris, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't, you see a gap and you drive through it.
Yeah, you were reaction. It was reactive.
Yeah, completely.
The first problem started in July of 1992 with a small mistake that eventually cost Leeson everything. Leeson bet that the Nikkei 225 index would rise, but it fell instead. This was a small loss, something that any trader could bounce back from. But here is where Leeson went wrong. Instead of reporting the loss, he hid it.
You're waiting for the exchange to give you the information, comes through, you've now got to make the customer good. So not only has she gone the wrong way, you've got to make the customer good. So you're 2 times effectively the wrong way. And you know what the process is. You've got to refer it up the line of the management line or line of seniority. But I know I've got an error. And the very next morning, I go into the office at 7 a.m. and look out Simon Jones, who's the head of the operations department. So he's looking after all of the back office functions for all of Singapore. And I have a chat with Simon. I explained to him, we've got an out trade. We've had to make the customer good. There's a loss of maybe $10,000 on this trade. And he's not really, he has no experience of futures and options. He's not really interested. It's not in his core part of the business. So he asked me to refer it to London, and that's the part that I didn't do. So, I took the opportunity, and, with every fraud, with every bad decision, if you like, you have to have an opportunity. And that was my opportunity, if you like. London wasn't going to be there for another 5, maybe 6 hours. So I wasn't able to refer it for that period of time. And I thought that, if the market gets back to that level, as it never does, I'm going to be able to close this trade down. Nobody's going to know anything else about it. And nobody's going to be looking at me as not failing at that stage, but having an error or having a situation. I was very new in the role, and you want everything to go as well as you possibly can. I'm complicit in that. I've concealed the trade, not the girl who made the error. The error was that unique moment in time, whereas now it's me that's concealing it, and I'm digging myself deeper and deeper into that situation, every day that I'm not cutting that loss, and it's getting worse. And, I don't have the, there's no way to hedge it. Not that I think I would have done. There's only a Nikkei 225 future. There's different months, but there's no other way around it. And I certainly don't have the skill set or anything from every morning I'd look at the statement, I'd look at the position, it'd be getting that little bit bigger because now I'm doubling down, right? It's that.
You're adding to the position as well because you're trying to average out the price?
Yeah, I don't think that happened on day one, but by day 3 and you're deeper into this situation, you're now floundering and you're thinking you froze already. And you're now floundering. You're thinking, how am I going to get this back? You've gone from a $10,000 loss to a $50,000 loss. So, you're 4 or 5, however you look at that, you're 5 times further away from a solution. And the easiest way to get back to that solution again, I think it's just basic human approach, but albeit an error, that you're going to get back there quicker if I've got twice the position. And, and that gambling mentality definitely mushrooms throughout the whole process as well.
He created a secret account numbered 88888 to hide his bad trades so they wouldn't appear on bank's main books. To others, it looked like he was doing perfectly. Executives praised his smooth operations and careful business approach, not knowing that he was hiding growing problems. With no one questioning him, he continued hiding his losses. Each time a trade failed, he buried it in his secret account. His losses grew quickly. 1 became 2, 2 became 10, 10 became 100. By the time he realized just how bad things were, it was way, way too late. In 1995, everything finally collapsed. In 1995, the Kobe earthquake severely disrupted Japanese financial markets, sending stocks to record lows. During this turmoil, Nick Leeson, a derivatives trader at the Barings Bank Singapore office, attempted to recover his hidden losses. Leeson had bet heavily that the Nikkei 225 would bounce and recover post-earthquake, but instead, the market continued falling and plummeted to fresh lows, escalating his unauthorized losses to a figure of $1.4 billion, which was twice the bank's trading capital. At this point, recovery was impossible. Through accounting manipulation, Leeson had concealed these losses from the management. But realizing now that discovery was imminent, he fled Singapore with his wife. Authorities quickly caught up to him in Frankfurt and extradited him to Singapore, where he was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. In the meantime, in 1995, his actions had destroyed Britain's oldest merchant bank.
I wasn't looking to enrich myself personally through bonuses or any other device.
And Mr. Leeson says he wasn't the first trader to gamble his bank's money, and he won't be the last.
During his incarceration, Barings Bank collapsed, declared bankruptcy, and terminated numerous employees, all of it stemming from his single unauthorized trade. While Leeson accepts responsibility, Barings created such an environment of extreme pressure that traders' careers hinged entirely on their performance success. For his actions, Leeson served 9 months in German custody and then 4 years in Singapore's maximum security prison. His career was shattered, leaving him with a reputation of causing Britain's largest banking failure. Leeson, however, showed remarkable resilience, using his imprisonment for reflection on his decisions. This introspection led to his autobiography, Rogue Trader, which presented him in a perspective and humanized his experience. Prison served as both punishment and transformation for Leeson. Upon release, he had changed significantly, despite losing his career, his freedom, and even his marriage. What is often overlooked in this story is how Leeson successfully rebuilt his life from nothing after serving his prison sentence.
Rogue Trader podcast is available now. I think I've done one of the main podcasts so far, and I think we're recording another one in the next couple of days. But we just thought there was a fairly unique area. Becoming a better communicator has always been a part of my life process since then. So just exploring that, and I like to ask the questions because I've been there, seen it, done it. You kind of think when not that I'm naturally gonna know when somebody's not telling you the truth, but I can bring my own experience into it. So if somebody says, it's pressure to perform or something like that, that's an easy one to hide behind. So, I'll just say, come off it. You knew what you were doing. You made some bad decisions. Let's explore those. It's not pressure to perform. Everybody's got pressure to perform. It doesn't matter what job you're in. Just because you work in finance doesn't make that pressure to perform any worse. This is the difference between right and wrong. And so explore it more in that way. And, I don't want to be confrontational, but I will be if I need to be.
Nick Leeson faced significant challenges rebuilding his career due to trust issues. But now that he's achieved stability, he offers some key insights to new trading professionals. Nick constantly urges junior traders to address underperforming positions immediately rather than hiding them as small losses, because those losses can escalate into major liabilities. Inexperienced traders often pursue high-risk strategies during profitable periods, leading to then substantial losses down the road. Leeson's experience serves as a valuable case study in risk management. According to Nick, markets operate independently of ego or perceived intelligence, systematically compounding each poor decision against the trader. He advocates for early intervention and quick loss realization. Many traders respond to difficulties by increasing their aggressive positions. This is a pattern that Leeson himself followed with devastating results. The Barings Bank collapse triggered an enhanced regulatory framework, and Leeson provides some perspective on their effectiveness going forward.
No 2 days are the same. There is no job that offers that, variety on a daily basis. We're 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks into the, Trump's second stint.
It's the greatest. It's the greatest. I love it. It's the greatest. I mean, it's the greatest show on earth.
It's mad. It's mad, isn't it? You don't know what he's going to do from 1 minute to the next. He does what he wants. He thinks about it after, I believe. Even the tariffs over the weekend, So he's imposed the tariffs on Friday deliberately to give the weekend, I'm sure, for there to be this absolute confusion about what's going on. The tariffs, you get a response from Canada and Mexico, and then a couple of phone calls change all of that on Monday. So a very weak market rebounds massively on Monday, and then he builds from there. And he loves using the markets as a metric for how successful he's being.
Really good point.
So he loves that. He loves that. So I'm sure the markets are going to be. Are they going to be a fun place? It depends on which side of the market you're on. But they're going to be an interesting place.
The financial world completely changed after Barings' collapse. Risk management suddenly became the hot topic in every boardroom, though let's be honest, risk never truly goes away. When Leeson looks back now, he still wonders how it all unfolded. He never imagined that he'd be the guy responsible for bringing down an entire bank. He was just doing his job, trading, moving money around, but things got out of hand incredibly fast. Nick knows the collapse of Barings falls squarely on his shoulders. It wasn't just about the money and numbers, it was really about broken trust. Real people lost their jobs, had their lives turned upside down because of decisions he made without thinking them through. Instead of hiding from his past, though, Leeson is actually turning it into something useful. He's stepping back into the financial world, but not as a trader this time, but as someone who can teach others. His new podcast, The Rogue Trader, digs into the major financial scandals and reveals truths about how the industry really works. This is one of the most fascinating stories in financial history. Leeson wasn't just any trader. He was someone who pushed boundaries until everything fell apart. His story shows us the true face of risk ambition, and the valuable lessons only come from that failure. If you're interested in learning more about finance, trading, and the stories behind the biggest wins and losses in the market, there's more content available for subscribers.